And welcome to today's session, Exploring a New Cyberspace of Communicating Vehicles. I'm Khaled and I will be your host for the day. Our speaker for today's session is Ikjot Saini, Assistant Professor, University of Windsor. Please note the session will be in listen-only mode and will last for about 40 minutes, of which last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. Requesting all the participants to post your questions in the Q&A window. If you need any assistance, please use the chat box or the Q&A window. Also, we do have two criteria for certification. First, participants need to attend the complete webinar. And second, fill in the survey and the right answer to all the three questions based on the webinar, which are to be sent to you one day post the webinar. A quick update to all of our women attendees. As we celebrate Women's History Month, EC Council is happy to announce that our women attendees can gain access to an exclusive code red box bundle designed by global women leaders, Dr. Anuradha Rao, founder of CyberCognizant, and Lisa, CSEP certified instructor for United States Air Force, which will be releasing soon. To do so, please make sure that you attend the complete webinar and fill in the survey. Now, about our speaker, Dr. Ikjot Saini is a cybersecurity expert whose research is focused on connected and autonomous vehicles, covering the security and privacy of V2X and in vehicle security. She has published as many research papers and journal articles, including V2X privacy schemes, engineering privacy attacks for equitable assessment, DSRC network cognizant, and routing protocols. Upon completion of her Ph.D., she joined an assistant professor in the School of Computer Science at University of Windsor. She is also an independent security consultant. She is as serving as an academic director for the Automotive Security Research Group and chapter lead at Windsor, as well as member of APMA Cybersecurity Committee as a V2X technology expert. Dr. Sayani is passionate about cybersecurity and is a leading voice promoting women's participation and leadership. She founded the first Canadian student chapter of Women in Cybersecurity with a mission to provide opportunities for women to learn and get hands on experience. It was awarded the Student Chapter of the Year in 2020 amongst 103 student chapters. She is also currently serving an academic chair on VCIS or Ontario affiliated board on the Auto Parts Manufacturers Association. Cybersecurity Committee V2X technology expert. She is a steam owner of IoT and edge security and an aggregate intellect, serving on various advisory boards. She was a winner of Cyber Women of the Year award in 2020 and inaugural of VTech Alliance Women in the Tech of Year award in 2019. She has been featured in 2020 Canadians to Watch list by Auto News Canada. Without any further delay, I would now like to hand over the session to you. Over to you, Ikjot.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to start today's presentation on the exploring a new cyberspace of communicating vehicles. And this is one of the areas I'm passionate about, and I have learned that with the coming emergence of vehicles in the more changing mobility patterns, we are going to see the emergence of autonomous vehicles, electric vehicles, and the entire supply chain is going to change. So, which will introduce a new cyberspace, and this is the presentation to just explore some different aspects of it and how it's going to affect the connectivity, the automation, and the supply chain, how the vehicles have been manufactured, and different auto parts which come from different places, and how when we integrate them, what are the cyber threats, and how we can be prepared for the coming threats, and what kind of workforce changes we will be seeing. So this is the entire ecosystem and the infrastructure of the next generation car. If you can see in the picture on the left, we have the vehicles on the road, we have the mobile communication and the satellite communication. But also we will see a change in which the vehicles will be able to talk to each other, and then also with the nearby infrastructure. Once that's happening, what we are going to see that there's a lot of connectivity and ad hoc networks getting created, which is not today seen, because today we have the base stations and the connectivity is limited to the base stations, and it's not that prevailing. But when it's come to having, if you want to have an analogy, you can imagine that these two vehicles or all these vehicles are connected with each other, some sort of connectivity which is like CV2X, but would also enable them to talk directly to each other rather than connecting with the base station. which changes the whole paradigm in which the connectivity is prevailing today, then it will be tomorrow. And also the security systems will also need to improvise based on the demands and needs of this ecosystem. And then there will also be the fleet management system, toll systems, and smart intersection. What these smart intersection and toll systems will do, because today it takes some time to process this information, and then also in these cities like bigger cities and metropolitan cities, we have maybe smart intersection, but they are limited to certain intersections only. But if we have the collective information, we can also have the better traffic management systems. And once we have that, it will allow us to have a reduction in the carbon footprint. And overall, it's going to be better in terms of the connectivity. With the connectivity, it brings down the number of accidents that we are seeing today, but also the traffic management system itself improvises. So that's how it's going to look like. There will be, if you see here, all the systems are connected with each other, or they will be connected as soon as they come in its vicinity. So what do we need to do in order to defend this kind of ecosystem, which is going to be pervasively connected in a way that we have not seen yet? Once it's on, it's going to be on all the time and active. So we need a defense in depth approach for this, and how we can do that. These are some of the building blocks that we need to think about today. So we know that we are seeing more and more lines of codes in the vehicles. And it's not just the vehicle as it used to be 50 to 100 years ago, which was just a mechanical device. Today it's becoming more electrified, and with the electrification, it is also becoming automated. Today we are at 2.5 or between 2 to 3 level of autonomy, which means that the driver still has to take care of it has to take the driver always be taking care, and even though there are some automation done, but the driver is the only main in charge. So even though we are having these changes in the paradigm of automation, but what we are seeing that we are not able to catch up with respect to cybersecurity of these automated levels. So the first thing I would point out is the software and the services. So we know that when there is a piece of code which is being built, it's mainly the main intent for the development of that piece of code is to have some objective and meet that objective. So once we see it from the security point of view, it might not be having the bubble wrap that we want, so that it doesn't crash and doesn't allow the attack itself to be there in the vehicle. So there is going to be a lot of cryptographic services that would be required, not just for the identity management, but also within the vehicle itself, as well as when it's communicating with the other vehicles and the infrastructure. So another one is the anomaly detection. There is a lot of work that is required for this within the vehicle network itself, and also the pervasiveness that I have just shown you, that there are so many threat vectors to one vehicle. So we need to identify if there is malicious behavior in a vehicle or an infrastructure unit on any of these building blocks of that ecosystem. The next one is the over-the-air update, and we have seen that there are some glitches coming with the current level at which we are. So if we try to have the over-the-air updates, we need to make sure that it's secure and it's not having the malicious piece of code in it, and also the timing of it, because it's vehicle and we need to make sure that it's having the update. The vehicle is having the update when it's in the safe and secure place. The next one is the hardware security services that can be used by the application. The first one is the device identification, very, very important, which is also coupled with the fast cryptographic performance. And we need isolated execution and message authentication. These are only few in this in all these building blocks. There are many, many more. This is just to give you an overview what does it will take to see the ecosystem itself. The next one is the hardware security building blocks, platform boot integrity, and chain of trust, which is very, very important. If there is going to be the chain of trust, we need to make sure that it is implemented appropriately. And then the key and the data. There is a lot of data that we are talking about here because there are going to be more number of sensors, and it is almost like an explosion in the number of sensors to sense different things in around the vehicle and within the vehicle, so that there can be smarter decisions made. To make more intelligent vehicle, we need more data. And once we have that data, we need to carefully perform, we need to have careful assessment of the actionable data. Once we have that, now it's up to the autonomous level at which we are working on. If it's getting increased, then we need to make sure the security levels are also embedded and cooked within the system itself and the design in the design. So by that I mean that all this data is securely processed and deleted after its execution. So the next one is, as I mentioned earlier, the connected cars, which was my main topic in my dissertation, which I focused on, and it's also called with two other names, which is V2X technology, vehicle to everything technology, and in academia we also call it vehicle ad hoc networks. So these networks or the connected cars are going to be very important for the autonomous vehicles in order to give the information and the situational awareness to the other vehicles around it. It's gonna give the warnings and alert to the driver if it's implemented today. But it's gonna improvise and change as the level of autonomous vehicles is going to increase. Once that happens, if you see on the left side, we can still implement V2X technology in these cars where the steering is still controlled by the driver. But on the right side, we can see that it's the autonomous, fully autonomous car in which the driver doesn't have to be there or be there for the wheel. And all the decisions can be made. But yeah, for sure, if the driver wants to intervene, he can do that. So you can see that this is a bridge. V2X communication is going to be a bridge for the autonomous vehicles and really going to empower the autonomous vehicle itself. So in a nutshell, this V2X communication look like this picture in the left side, where this car can talk to and send in securely information to the infrastructure units and also to the pedestrians and to the other vehicles. Having that connectivity, all these devices which are interconnected or are sending information back and forth can inform each other about its situational awareness. That means it contains the location data, the movement of the either it's a pedestrian, then the pedestrian will have it on the device, or the intersection can also disseminate some information, for example, the red signal, and it doesn't have to be the signal itself. So on the right side, we can see these are some of the use cases of the V2X technology. Vehicle to infrastructure, vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to device, vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to grid, and vehicle to network. That means you can see that how pervasive it's going to be. When we see the vehicle in the future, I think it's going to be more of a, today we see the base station like that, where everything is connected, but it's going to be more like that. We are going to have an explosion of these base stations, and each of these vehicles are going to be mobile devices. It's more of a computer itself. So the next one is the location awareness for safety warnings. So what happens when there is connectivity among vehicles? So if we see here in this picture, we have 5 to 6 vehicles on the road, and they're moving into the same direction. But this vehicle in the front cannot, the vehicle in the rear cannot see the vehicle right in the front, which is having 3 in the middle. So what happens if there is a hard brake done by the first vehicle? What it needs to do today the problem is if there is a hard brake done by on the highway at the speed of more than 100 kilometers per hour, then it causes collisions, and there are so many collisions after that because it's just uncontrollable because the last, let's say the third or fourth vehicle didn't know or could not anticipate what's happening, and the person or the driver gets really less time to make the decision. So what can be prevented in this case? If we have the location, speed, direction, traffic information sent by this first vehicle and also the information that there is a hard brake, then it will issue a warning to all these vehicles in the back. And because of that, this vehicle, which is the fifth one on the back, uh, it will get that information. And what it would do, that it would get the warning. Now the driver can make the decision if it's the level 2 vehicle. If it's an automated vehicle, it will make a decision as well, which will either slow down or either it also hard brake so that there is no collision. So that is the purpose of having V2X or vehicle-to-vehicle communication, so that we can prevent these collisions, which are avoidable if we have connectivity. But since we don't have the connectivity, today we have only ADAS systems, which can only have the situation awareness right next to the vehicle because it can only sense that. But if we can provide that to 300 meters of range and have the connectivity directly with the vehicles, then it will really it will be more informative for the vehicle to make these decisions and also issue these warnings to the drivers so that there can be but we need to make sure that this information is going in real time because we're talking about a fraction of a second. So this is very important because this information which is being transmitted is in the real time and has to be in the real time because we are talking about lives, we are talking about the person inside this car at the back. So that makes it, this is one of the biggest challenge in vehicular ad hoc networks because it introduces a completely new set of challenges. We have not seen these in the mobile ad hoc networks. What is the maximum limit that what can happen in the worst case scenario? If let's say if there are some of the transactions, financial transactions, it can either get delayed, but it's not about the lives of the people. So that's the main difference between what we have seen in the previous use cases, and today we need security for the safety. So that changes in the auto sector. So this is one of the overview example or the scenario that you can imagine for V2X, in which all these vehicles here on the road are connected with each other using vehicle-to-vehicle communication. And each vehicle has an OBU, which is onboard unit, which allows these vehicles to communicate with each other. Earlier, it has the DSRC, which was the technology or protocol I was working on. And last year, it got uh, I think it's not going to be there anymore. It's deprecated now, and it's going to be CV2X. So I just wanted to inform that this was a similar to Wi-Fi technology. We can have that analogy, um, but it's not going to be DSRC anymore. So there were some changes in the spectrum by FCC, and because of that, we will be having CV2X, which is cellular V2X technology. That means we will be using the regular base stations and also the partial vehicle-to-vehicle communication. So on the back end, what's happening? So we have RSUs, which are roadside units, the intersection units, and also these communicate with the vehicles and send the information about the traffic and the other infrastructure-related information, and also from the backend information. So we have here, so this is just to show you that how this vehicle-to-vehicle information is being communicated. So one of the there are many different messages which are being sent back and forth between vehicles, but the main one is the BSM, which is responsible for the safety, and this is basic safety message. So this is very important to understand that how much information a vehicle would send out when we are talking about the safety. So if you see here in this little bubble on this vehicle, it contains vehicle data and it has latitude, longitude, time, heading, angle, speed, acceleration, brake status, and turn signal status. So if we see it from the lens of safety, I see that there is no problem because that's required and we need it to make decisions for the safety and of the passenger and the driver. So that based on that analysis, we would say this is fine. But um, so the another point is, so this is also sent into two different formats, which is VSM1 and 2. The first one will be sent 10 times per second, so that there is, as I told you, mentioned that it's the fastest way that we want to send information because the vehicles are moving really fast and changes the location and situation on the road really fast. Because that's not the case in the mobile devices that we use today, because it doesn't change the context because it's still connected with the base station. But it really matters what we're going to see in these changing topologies on the road. And based on that, the broadcast required for the V2V safety application is more localized, and it has 300 meters range for it. And it also needs the low latency, which is very, very critical and causing a lot of new sets of problems, especially for the cybersecurity point of view. So this creates new cyberspace and new cyber challenges. So the auto security challenges are not limited to the vehicle which are connected. We also need to make sure that the software security in these connected vehicles is up to the mark, and it should not be lagging. But today we see that it is lagging, and there is a lot of room for the improvement and changes to be made. And the another one is it needs to be seen as a continuous growth and evolution. It shouldn't be more like, okay, this set of the problems or challenges are dealt with, so we are not going to work on this. So I don't think so. This is going to be the case because in auto security, it's very agile, and we need the approach in which we can handle these or tackle these problems as we go on the fly. So security in the product development lifecycle. As we have seen today, the main problem in the auto sector is the life cycle of the vehicle is really long. As compared to the other devices that we use, the lifetime of a vehicle is at least 10 years. And if we are also considering smart cities, the infrastructure units and the other units are also incorporated in this entire ecosphere. So we have that life cycle even longer. So once we have that, we want to make sure the security and the little devices or sensors which are embedded are having the security in the front of the life cycle. That means before the deployment or when we are having the design phase, it's more cooked into that. And rather than having the testing or security testing towards the end of the product development life cycle, it's better to have and push it towards the left. That means push it towards the when you're starting to design the entire product. Next one is the standards, which brings us to the question that we often assume that industry is having all the standards, but this has been another challenge because it is today a compilation of all these different sectors, which we have not seen yet coming together, which is auto and IT, and we need security, and it's become a vehicle is becoming not just a vehicle itself, that means a mechanical device again, but more of a mobile device. So as you see your phone today, or earlier you used to have a very powerful computer, today your phone is even faster than that and can perform so much computing. It is going to be similar, but when you think about electrified vehicles, it's going to be even revolutionizing. So the standards are still in development because there is a lot of room in which we need to think of, and we have not yet explored about those things. And for the cybersecurity specifically, there is one standard which is going to be there in the mid of 2021, which is ISO standard, ISO 21434. It's for the cybersecurity of the road vehicles, and it's specified to the electronics within a vehicle. So the last one here we will cover is the threat vectors in the supply chain. We should not forget about the different parts which come together for a vehicle. And all these parts are not coming from one place. They are coming from this entire chain, and all these little pieces, and we have seen recently the biggest, one of the biggest security attacks, and this is going to be similar here. But the challenge is that we need to keep track of those all little pieces in the supply chain and make sure that it has the bubble wrap, and we have the efficient measures and control measures that we can put in place and be mindful of all the threat vectors which are possible. The next one is the software security in our industry. In the automotive industry, security is safety. This is one of the quotes I would say, I always say that it is almost equivalent, because if something is compromised on the road, then it's causing the fatalities and the lives of people. So we need to make sure that the lives are at stake. So we need to make sure that there is enough and sufficient security in all these systems which we are introducing for the benefits and all for the good reasons, but have a really mindful approach for this with the security in mind for automotive industry. So usually the security controls are seen as the IDS and firewalls, and this would be any case if somebody thinks today, because infotainment system is one of the, or telematics units is one of the main ways in which an attacker can get the remote connection, and can. There were so many breaches we have seen in the past, but the main one is 2015 Jeep Cherokee case. It was the demonstration of what is the extent in which we can have these attacks. And we are still talking about the infotainment system and telematics units. But what I just showed you in a few slides ago, which was this entire ecosystem having new radio waves and just talking on different frequencies and have more connectivity, more connections with these vehicles and infrastructure. Just imagine the level of and the landscape in which all these vehicles are now connected with the infrastructure and having those little points and causing more threat vectors. So current state is the security testing is late in the product release process, and we need to change that and push it towards the beginning of the process. The vision of the industry is that cybersecurity is just one of the standard processes, just like the safety testing for a vehicle. The time and expense will pay off later. So as I earlier mentioned, the security is safety in the automotive industry. Earlier in, I think 70 years ago, there was the invention of this seat belt, and that was for the safety. So once we knew that this is very, very important and all the other components are tested for the safety in the vehicle, I think it's going to be the same approach for this industry for security, because you have to make this equivalent and ensure that it is really the security is really cooked into the system design. And for sure it will pay off later, because then there will be less of the casualties. That's what we don't want on the road. The another one that I'm big on is privacy work, and why it's important, because we are seeing today a lot of analytics. And we talk all the time about AI collecting a collection of data and surveillance in so many other ways, but it is going to be a balancing act in this changing paradigm, because I have already shown you the connectivity among vehicles is also having this massive information exchange, and at a very high level, like so many times it sends that message like 10 times per second. And if there is a collection of data, then we need to make sure and mindful again that that data is not being compromised and having the privacy in place. These are some of the main categories of the cyber attacks which can be performed and need to be prevented. So the first one is the physical attack. It contains the hardware modification, no replication in side channel. This is more related to the in-vehicle network as well. The second one also the in-vehicle network, in which there are different sensors connected with the CAN bus and having the LiDAR and radar. Next type of attack is software attack. I think the first one I mentioned about the infotainment system and the third-party apps. This is the most critical one, because we lose control on third-party apps often, what's happening and how the data is being used and collected. And what can be done if there is a malicious piece of code. And the last one is the firmware. And then network attack, as it always fascinates that there's so much connectivity and we are still dealing with so many cyber attacks on the internet itself. So adding this to the Internet of Things and having this subset of Internet of Vehicles is going to change the paradigm in a way that we will have more connectivity. And now we have local interconnect network, controller area network, FlexRay, and Ethernet. So all these different connectivities within a vehicle and also giving the connectivity outside of the vehicle. These are the ways in which there is a network is formed and it is prone to compromise. Okay, so automotive cyber attacks impact data that we know the data that is being collected, how it's being used, which tends to also impact the privacy. Based on the country, the regulations changes. There are so many things in play when we talk about privacy, and it also impacts asset. It also impacts the service. What there is one of the things I can ensure that there's a lot of the service opportunities and the new entrepreneurship opportunities in this coming connected vehicles and the autonomous vehicles, because with the connectivity it brings we have seen in the first image that there was a toll system, and there are so many other things that we can, so many use cases in which connectivity can be so useful for the convenience of the person. But what would happen? Again, we need to be mindful of the privacy and the security. We need to build a trust system, and for that we need to have and establish let's say a similar security credential management system as we use for the other systems today. We need to have the similar system, but we don't want to give away the real information. For example, if we use credit card today, we really write down our credit card number when we are transmitting it, but it's always encrypted, really highly encrypted. But which is not the case actually when we are transmitting the vehicle information to the other vehicle. It's actually in the plain text. And for that reason, it needs a completely different, it's like the reform of the trust model. And the last one is the life. For sure, this entire chain that we have learned and seen today here, it's more impacting on the life, and that's why the safety was the only critical part when it was the vehicle was only focused and was seen as the mechanical device. When it's becoming more and more electrified and also sensor space, having so many piece of codes in it, and also electrification, it brings a lot of new challenges. And we need to make sure, as a driver, if I'm sitting in the car, I need to make sure that I have everything in place and it is really secure. That's why I said it's not just the trust, it's also the trust of the customer, and they need to be sure that their life is not in danger. These are some of the open issues which spans from mobility services and smart mobility. I think there is a lot of work being done today in various parts of the world, and some of them are already having this already deployed. Some have the pilots in which we see some of the glimpse of how a smart mobility is going to facilitate us. But it also, it's like a can of worm. We can have so many other problems which we want to see if we want to see them. And also, it introduced completely new business models, which we are seeing with the patterns as how world is changing today. And there is a change and the shift in the data sharing. How much and the controls also. How controlled the data is, who is willing to share the information, how to what extent that information is being shared. The next one is the keyless entry. Again, another problem with the encryption there was in one of the models. I cannot disclose which make and model of which automaker, but there was a recent years ago with just a little encryption, there can be a problem if you're not mindful of which encryption should you use for your keyless entry. So this is another case because there are so many glitches in the way you implement, if it's a particular radio that you're using, then you need to make sure that there are no disturbances around it. So that is one of the use cases. The next is third-party apps, which again causes new sets of problems, which are sometimes, and most of the time, I think it's not seenable. You cannot, sometimes you cannot see them directly in the, if it's a piece of code, you cannot see it, but passively, maybe there are some of the issues with that third-party app. The next one is the sensor attack. So today we have the ADAS systems. So we have seen that is limited and provide the limited information in terms of situational awareness. But if we have the sensors which will be more into the let's say lidar and radar and also connected with the internal network of the vehicle, it's going to give a lot of connectivity within the vehicle, but also the sensors are actually feeding the data in the vehicle for the warnings and alerts. So this sensor data is actually issuing the warnings. So we need to make sure if there is an attack on these sensors, it's actually going to manipulate and change the information which driver is seeing, because we don't know. It's more like black box for the driver and can only see the end result, which is like a warning, a flashing light, or some sort of an alert on the dashboard. So these are some of the still open issues. But for sure, if it's electrified vehicles, it has its own challenges. For autonomous vehicles, there are different challenges too. So for automakers, what they need to see is the growth. So look at the security as a growth opportunity, which is very, very important for this sector, and for people to look at for the right people in the industry to address the required changes and train the personnel. So the main problem is that we usually expect the workforce to be trained already, and that is the critical problem, because we are seeing today that there are these requirements and changes in the um, profile we might need in our workforce, but there are not enough courses and curriculums and the way we would accommodate those needs in the academia. So we need to bridge that somehow and start training our newcomers or new employees in a way so that they can make these transitions easily. And I think it comes to the industry itself taking the lead and then training their own personnels and making sure that the right people are serving in this industry to address these changes. So today's challenges in this auto security ecosystem is the skills shortage. So it's really, really wide. If I have to categorize my expertise, it falls under the network security in automotive cybersecurity, which is also specific to V2X. So in that way, there are so many other little in technicality, there are so many different aspects, and you can only be starting with one set of skills. So today we are seeing the skills shortage because there are no certifications directly applicable for that, and there are less number of courses for sure. Most of the work that has been done from academia to industry, and the transition is more on the research, because if there are some sort of partnerships or the work which is being done under emerging tech, then there is a chance that the new young talent can be educated on these skills. But it is really, we need to push that more. So one of the things we can do is provide the resources. And today we see that another problem is the scarcity of these resources. Another is the checkbox mentality. Often it's seen that if we have done the security check, it's all done. It's not a checkbox when it comes to the security, especially in the automotive industry, because it cannot be that. If it's an all-time changing paradigm, and it's going to change and evolve as we go. So we need to catch up every time we see a new threat. We need to make sure, is it possible to have this in another way? So the last one is the training and education. That is going to be, I mean, moving forward, we will see more reforms, I guess, and more changes in the way we train and educate our current workforce. And also the students which are, let's say, doing the undergraduate degrees and different programs in the colleges, there's a lot of training and education that is required. So the industry needs to make sure that they are pushing this towards the academia as well. So for automotive engineers, they need to learn and secure coding methods. And for cybersecurity professionals, they need to apply their knowledge to this completely new cyberspace. For software developers, they need to understand the automaker's perspective because they can only talk about the convenience and the final output that they want. But software developers needs to make sure that they are pushing the cybersecurity and cooking and embedding security by design, privacy by design principle when they're developing these softwares. The last one is the researchers. So they need to collaborate with more diverse set of faculties like mechanical, civils, electrical, computer science, cybersecurity, maybe law as well, and business, because we need to see some of the things that we're not seeing today. And it comes with the collaboration for sure, and we need this collaboration in this space. Really, it's a dire need today. And that's everything from my side, and thank you so much. I would love to answer the questions.
Thank you very much, Ikjot, for an insightful and very informative session. I hope you all enjoyed this amazing presentation by our speaker today. So before we move on to the Q&A session, a quick reminder again to all our women attendees today. Don't forget to fill out the survey after the session to gain access to the exclusive Code Red Box bundle designed by global women leaders, Dr. Anuradha Rao, founder of Cyber Cognizance, and Lisa, certified instructor for the United States Air Force, which will be releasing soon. This is our gift to you as we celebrate Women's History Month. EC Council, University President Scholarship for Women in Cybersecurity. To further our efforts to empower women, we proudly announce a dedicated women-oriented program assisting new and current undergraduates and graduates with tuition assistance worth $2,500 to reach their future endeavors. So if you are interested to learn more about our programs, kindly take part in the poll that's going to be conducted now and let us know your preferred mode of training. So shall we start with the Q&A, Ikjot? We already have too many questions here.
Sure.
Okay, so the first question we have is from Piyush. He asks, as you mentioned in the slide prior to V2X, that there will be fully autonomous cars and the driver can intervene if he or she wants. Will the speed of the car be limited after switching from autonomous to manual, or in manual mode, the speed may increase?
So I think, can you repeat in the beginning? I think there is a problem with the question itself. Can you repeat from the beginning?
Okay, I'll just repeat the question again. He says that as you mentioned in the slide prior to VX, that there will be fully autonomous cars.
Yeah. So actually, yeah, thank you. So actually, maybe you misheard, or maybe when I was presenting, I made a statement in which it might communicated wrong. But I said that not prior to autonomous vehicles. I said the connected vehicles is more like a bridge going forward for the autonomous vehicles. And once we have that, it's not that V2X is going to be more assistive for the autonomous vehicles. I didn't say that we will have the autonomous vehicle first and then we will have V2X. So that is to clarify if there was a confusion. The second thing is if we have that connectivity, and also the question is, I think, on the automation. If you take control at level 5, I think that whenever there's a control taken by the driver, I think there is always going to be a cap on the speed that you can go on. So you can, I think your question would be on if you can increase the speed. So I would say, I think at level 5, you cannot do that. We still don't have any vehicle that can do that. At least it's not disclosed. So that is going to be a cap based on the regulations and the framework that we are seeing, which are emerging today. Next question.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the next question is, Sensor attacks has CAN bus attacks. Network attacks also have CAN. What is the difference?
So so it's more like a feedback that gets it. So once we have these sensors, so the canvas is like the Ethernet for within vehicle. So we have all the different sensors connected to it. So when I mentioned sensor attack, that means the sensor itself, like the little component, get attacked. And when I talked about the network, that means that piece of information, or let's say there's a malicious code, can be propagated to the other using the network attack. That was the difference.
Thank you so much, Ikjot. The next question is, how do we know what risk our new car have and what control do you suggest we need to do to protect our data and privacy if we have connected car?
Yeah, so one thing I would make sure, okay, with the current standards, what's happening, they are trying to have this privacy by design principle implemented. But I would still say that we are on the verge of having the convenience and safety versus the privacy and security. So even though we push more security in ways that we can have security, but it will still, I would say, privacy is still left behind often and seen last thing, or after many years we take care of privacy. But I think my entire dissertation was on it, and I can definitely be on your side on this and would say that we need more push on the information collection. The another thing is when it's implementing and being deployed in your country, I'm not sure from where everybody is joining, but there are different ways the controls can be put in place based on the country itself, on its regulation. So there is one thing that such a technology is being mandated for everybody to use. But when there is such a case, then there is, in the democratic regions, we have seen in the US, there was a mandate in 2020 to put this as a in all the vehicles. But we have seen there was a pushback from the customers because they didn't have yet developed their trust in such technology. So because of that, we have seen that people are aware of the privacy issues and they don't want and don't yet feel comfortable because they're not insured enough on these fronts. So I think as customers and end users, we always have this right to ask before we opt for such a technology. And for them, it becomes the automakers or the industry itself, it becomes a challenge. And once it becomes a challenge from customer end, then it often and all the time, I would say, is started to be the biggest problem, and then it's being solved. So that it's not like we cannot solve these problems. It's more like, do we prioritize privacy? Do we prioritize the information collection and analytics in a way that it's privacy is designed and cooked in the embedded system? So if you ask me, if you have to make a decision, I would say wherever you are, check your regulations, check if it matches the collection of data. And if it just doesn't justify, then please make sure that you are asking for the right things from these bodies and the automakers. You can always make a claim. Next
Thank you
question.
so much. Yeah, the next question we have is from Dr. Rama Bhatia. She asks, can you relate environment variables with cybersecurity?
Can you relate what?
Environment variables with cybersecurity.
I'm not sure in what sense did they ask, but with the electrified vehicles, I can for sure see that. And there's a lot of carbon footprint because of the security. Sometimes we implement way too many measures and we can actually reduce them to have the same level of security. So in that sense, I can say that there's a lot that we can do on the carbon footprinting and we can reduce it the way we have these measures. So rather than having duplication and having some redundancies, it's important to see through this life cycle, and it's very complex actually, and we don't want to repeat the same processes over and over within the life cycle, because having one of it can be making more sense, but having multiple checks can also leave a lot of carbon footprint. So I can only justify from that answer, but there would be definitely, Yeah, so another way, because I can relate to this, that the whole point of V2X was for the traffic management. And why so? Because when we go to metropolitan cities, and especially the dense areas, dense urban areas, we see a lot of traffic and so many hours wasted and so much gasoline wasted there. So that is the way, not just the cybersecurity, but the connectivity, these changes actually can impact for overall good. Next question.
Thank you so much, Ikjot. This is Pritama. Actually, Seema is having a few background noises, having some background and some audio issues at her end. So I will be taking over the questions. So the next question is from Manoj Lala, and he is asking that in automation, how you can overtake the other vehicle.
This is a frequent question. If you mean the overtake on the vehicle, then with the fully autonomous, I would say no, you cannot do that. The only thing is because it really disrupts the entire highway, and there is a lot of, with the simulation modeling, I can talk for this, that when you force one vehicle to go, it detects it as the malicious vehicle, because when it's more like you're not following the rules, kind of a thing, when it's highly automated. But when it's more of a less automated, you definitely have, and that is where the most challenges lie when we want to transition with all these new different technologies and still having vehicles which are neither connected and neither automated, which creates a really good mix and a mess where we have these different segments of the vehicles, and putting them together in this mix is not a good use case, I would say, because if we are working for the connectivity, we need most of at least 80% of the vehicles connected. And when we are talking about connectivity, it doesn't have to be the automated, because the driver still can see the warning and can make the decision. But when we talk about automated, it's more like the decisions and the controls, who is having that. And when we talk about the third level, yeah, for sure you can overtake if you want to, and it would not make any other changes. But as far as we go to the fifth, I would say there would be, especially if you're going on autobahn, then yeah, I think only then you can go and overtake it. Thank you. Next question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ikjot. Yes, and the attendee is really happy with the answer and has thanked you on this, Ikjot. So this is the last question that we are taking for the evening. So if you have any other questions, please put it in the questions tab. We are open for the next 5 minutes, 5 minutes. So the next question is Ikjot. It's from Shambhu, and he's asking, what is MRF?
What is Smurf?
Smurf.
Smurf? I didn't mention that, and I'm not sure what is the context. If he or she can put the context.
Okay. So Shambhu, I would just request you to, if you can just elaborate and put the context in the question. Okay. Other than that, I think we are done with most of the questions. I don't see any other questions that are left to be taken. Seema? Hi, Seema, are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Yeah.
Okay. Seema, are all the questions taken?
Yes, almost all of them have been taken.
Okay. So I think that was the only question at George that was left. So again, thank you so much for such a lovely session. We got to learn a lot, and from the questions that we have got, I can tell you that our audiences have highly enjoyed the session. Thank you so much.
So. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure having you on our platform. And thank you to all our audiences for participating in this session. In this session, as you know, that the certificate of attendance will be reaching to you from 5 to 7 business days after the webinar is over. So please make sure to fill out the survey form that goes to you 1 hour after the session, or 1 day after the session is over. And other than that, we also have a series of as you all know that we are celebrating International Women's Month. We have other
we have other webinars also lined up for the upcoming month, including a panel discussion which has a all women's panel. So I have put the Cyber Talks website in the chat section. So kindly thank you guys, and with this I will be closing. Thank you, Ikjot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ikjot, for a wonderful presentation. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.